Hey everybody, and welcome to today's How To Tuesday. This is one that is near and dear to my heart. How to catch a permit on a spinning rod. I've had a lot of questions about this, so I want to go over and dedicate an entire episode of How To Tuesday to catching a permit on a spinning rod. It's really one of the most fun things to do in all of saltwater fishing. So here's a chance to at least give my opinion on how it goes catching a permit on a spinning rod. First starts with the outfit itself. And I like to use, for my battle axe rod, I'm going to use two different rods. One's kind of a summertime outfit, and one is a regular all-around go-to rod. And the all-around go-to rod, which I'm going to use 90% of the time, is a St. Croix Avid spinning reel, or spinning rod. I like the Avid series, and I like a 7-foot medium heavy fast action. And if you were to look at the code, it's VIS70MHF, and that's the St. Croix Avid series. I like a 7-foot rod, personally. That's me. Some people prefer a 7.5-foot rod. I like a 7-foot rod myself. I feel like I can cast the most accurately with it, and it is my favorite. So I'm going to start with that rod. I'm going to pair that rod with a Daiwa 3000 ballistic. Now, the 3000 ballistic can hold 20 pounds or 20-pound J braid, 310 yards of it. So that's plenty of line for a permit. It's a very small, very light reel with a really good drag. You can actually go down with the ballistic because it has good line capacity, and also the drag is fantastic. So that's the reel I'm going to pick. And then I'm going to use J-braid, which is Daiwa's braid. I really like that braid. It doesn't tangle very often. I use the light blue, and I'll use that in 15 for the most part. I'll also have some reels spooled up with 20, and so 15 and 20 on that. I'm going to tie fluorocarbon leader onto the end of it, and I'm only going to use about 1.5 foot of fluorocarbon leader on the end. That's all the leader that you need, and that's going to allow me to cast accurately so that the connection between the braid and the fluorocarbon is outside of the tip of the rod when I go to cast. If you have too much, you have to cast the knot, which is either going to be a double uni or a J knot or something like that, where you're going to attach the braid to the fluorocarbon. And then I'm finally going to attach a hook. And I am a firm, adamant believer that circle hook is the way to go with permit. For many, many years, I struggled with using J hooks and watching people miss them and watching people get the bite and come back with an empty shell and never even feel the fish at all and never even really know that the fish bit. And he bit it, smashed the crab, and left. And I did not get hooked with the J hook. I don't really like the J hook for permit fishing, and I'm going to say never use one because, and I rarely use the words always and never, but I never use one because the percentage is so bad that there is virtually zero chance that I'm going to run out of circle hooks in my boat because I buy a ton of them, and I have boxes upon boxes upon boxes of them. So I absolutely will not run out of circle hooks. I've got them stashed in different places in the boat. Not going to run out. I like a 4/0 circle, and I'll use various manufacturers. I'm not just dead set on one. I do have a preferred and favorite hook, which is the Offshore Angler branded hook. It's a short shank, very short shank 4/0 circle, and it's the Offshore Angler brand. You can go and get it at Bass Pro Shops or Offshore Angler. Second favorite hook would probably be the Gamakatsu. Third, owner, and then down from there, there's plenty of others. I used to use a Matsuo circle hook and had great success with that one. It's not as available as some of the other ones, so kind of go with what I can get. There's a Worldwide Sportsman right there in Islamorada. Easy to go in there and pick this particular hook up. It's a very short shank hook. When you see it, you won't believe it. but it works great. And so that's my rig. That's my 90% rig. The next thing is definitely the most important. While the rod is important, the reel is important, the line, the hook is extremely important. But the next thing is even more important than all of those, and that's the bait. And there's not a lot of debate. You know, you talk about almost anything in fishing, and if you were to say what's the best bait for a tarpon, you'd have tremendous debate. Some people would say mullet, some people would say pilchard, some people would say pinfish, some people would say crab, some people would say shrimp, on and on down the line, right? Permit, I don't really know anyone that's going to debate that the best bait for a permit is a live blue crab. We are very lucky in the state of Florida that almost every bait shop, tackle shop, any place that sells bait, live bait anyway, also sells live shrimp, live crabs. They're very available. The trick is to be able to be allowed to pick the crabs yourself, because if you go into the bait shop and they give you a bunch of crabs that are 6 inches across, you're not going to catch any permit. Those are way too big. And if you go in there and they only give you these tiny ones, you're not going to be able to cast them far enough. I think the smaller the crab, the better the bait. But there is a balance between how small the crab is and how far you can throw it. So I'm looking at a tape measure right now, and I'm looking at the crab size that I like. For permit, I like a crab that's 2 inches across the carapace. 2.5 inches is still in the sweet spot of really nice. 3 inches is starting to get a little too big. 3.5 inches, you're going to get some fish to eat it. They're also going to start to turn it down. When you get some smaller fish around, you're going to get some refusals on that. So this goes back to just selecting the bait is so important. And I'm going to go smaller before I go larger. Now, if you get to the bait shop and all they have are 2-inch crabs, you might want to get some split shots too, because you're probably not going to be able to throw that crab, even with 15-pound J-braid, as far as you might like. So you can put a split shot or two above the crab, and it's not my favorite, but it will help you to get it out there a little bit further. My favorite is to get the exact right size crab, which is about somewhere between 2 and 2.5 inches across the carapace. And I'm going to hook that crab right on the point of the carapace, like as close to the point as I possibly can. There is an area in there which is kind of like an earlobe. You can pierce it and not kill the crab. If you get into the white part of the body, the crab's not going to last very long. You're getting into its internal organs, stuff starts leaking out, crab doesn't last very long. You want to, what I like to do is just put the point of the hook through the edge, and instead of just cramming it through there and breaking the shell, I will just start to drill it back and forth with the circle hook. I'll let the point go through the shell, and I'm happy with the placement of it. And then I'll just start drilling that hook back and forth. Just with my fingers, I'll just move the hook back and forth, and it'll look like a drill. It'll just start drilling away some of the shell material, and the hook will go through. It'll go through with a small hole, and then the barb of the hook will penetrate, and the crab won't be able to get off. And now, at this point, it's really important that you have a good, healthy crab. You've hooked it properly. You've got the right rig. You've got the right hook, the right leader, the right line, the right rod, the right reel. Everything's going your way right now. So what you want to do is maintain the health of that crab. You want a little bucket up there on the deck with you, or if you're moving slowly and the crab's not going to be skipping across the water, you can just dip the crab in the water. Keep the crab wet. So you're standing there waiting for the permit to show up. You've got your your bail open, your finger on the line, and the crab in the water. That's the Florida Keys way to do it. You keep that crab wet at all times. If you are standing up on a cooler to get better visibility and see more fish, which is also a very good idea, sometimes you're too high for this system to work. So some people will take a small bucket, a little bait bucket, maybe it's a 5-gallon bucket, put a little seawater in it, and make sure that the crab is staying wet and staying healthy all the time. You also want to avoid practice casting with this thing. There's no reason to cast it until you see a fish. You can cast at what you think is a fish, but just remember that the more you cast, the more you're going to need to change your bait. So after you cast a crab 3 or 4 times, you're basically giving that thing a concussion over and over and over again. And he's not going to be moving as well. He's not going to be moving as fast. What you want is a crab that when you put it in your hand or on the bottom of the boat, it's moving its legs so fast that it's clicking. It has a clicking sound to it. You'll see that goes away after you cast it a couple times. If you cast a crab like that has this clicking sound, its legs are moving so fast that it's clicking. They're clicking against the shell. You're not getting a refusal. That permit sees that crab. He's coming over. He's going to eat it. Okay. If it has claws on it, even better. I love claws on crabs. I don't like to reach in there and grab them and have them pinch me. No, that's no fun. Nobody likes that. But if I have a bunch of crabs that I have kept myself and fed and kept healthy, and they were allowed to grow their claws back, I just know I'm just going to put on a little glove. I'm going to reach in there. I'm going to grab the crab, and he's going to bite the glove, and I'm going to be able to hook him up, and everything's going to be fine. But you can't. Oftentimes in the bait shops, the claws are removed. That's fine. You'll catch plenty of fish like that, but the best by far are the ones with claws. So if I can have the claws, I will keep the claws. Okay, so now we see a fish and we're going to make a cast to it. What we're going to do is we're going to cast beyond the fish and then bring the crab to it, as opposed to trying to crash it right into its face. We have the ability to cast a lot further probably than we need to, because we're using the new generation of braided lines like the Daiwa J braid. It has the line diameter of 4-pound test, and it's 15. That's awesome. It means you can cast a lot further, and if you get the right size crab, you can cast a long way. You can cast 15 feet past the permit, and then reel it into its line of travel, and then let it go slack. That crab, if it is one like I'm talking about that has the clicking sound as it's going down and it is really swimming, it will swim almost as fast as a fish to the bottom. If a permit sees that, he is on it like you won't believe. That's it. That's classic permit fishing. That's what you're looking for. The fish goes over there, he tails, their big mud comes up, and you got him. He came over and he ate your crab, and you just raise the rod tip without moving the line, close the bail, and just start reeling. And as you reel, that circle hook will find its home in the corner of his mouth, and now you are on. Contrary to a lot of people, I want to make sure that permit doesn't turn and we do not get that hook put into it. So I encourage reel until the drag starts going out, and then reel for 5 seconds after. Okay. Learned that from Mark Croca. He's probably caught more slams than anyone in the state of Florida. He knows a thing or two about how to set the hook in a permit. He told me that a long time ago, and I was like, reel against the drag? What are you talking about? He's like, doesn't matter, man. Just reel against the drag, get this hook set, and then you don't reel against the drag, obviously, when you're fighting the fish. But sometimes what happens is you go down to set that hook, and the permit turns straight at you, and you think you've got him, and you don't get the hook set very well. So I suggest reel until you set the hook, and then reel a little more, and then until that fish really starts taking off, you're staying tight with him. Okay. So that is pretty much how to catch a permit on a spinning rod. You can also do it with a jig with shrimp. You can do it with just a shrimp. You can do it with a bear jig. You can catch a permit on a fly rod. All are awesome ways to do it, and I'm sure that we will dedicate future How To Tuesdays to how to do that. I want to go over one more little thing here. In the beginning, I said that I use 2 rods. I'll use a battle axe rod, which is 7-foot, medium heavy, fast action St. Croix Legend, or Avid, sorry. And then I will also have what I call a summer rod. And the summer rod is going to be the same type of rod, St. Croix Avid, and it comes in an 8-foot model. Now, the 8-foot model, I'm going to go a little bit lighter, medium light, 8 feet long, like a fly rod. And then I'm going to put lighter line, 10 pound. And I'm going to be able to throw a small crab further. Now, first of all, we would want to use a small crab because oftentimes that's what you get in the summertime. That's what's available at the bait shops. But secondly, summertime fishing, it can be slick calm. And the calmer it is, the spookier the fish are, the further you have to cast. A lot of people don't think that's the way it is, but as it gets calmer, you have to cast farther because they won't tolerate the boat pushing up on them. When it's really windy, you don't have to cast very far. When it's really, really calm, you have to cast a lot further. So I'll go to an 8-foot rod, 10-pound test, and a smaller hook because I'm going to use a smaller crab. So I might go to a 2/0 or a 3/0 hook, depending on the size of the crab. And then I'm going to be able to throw that a little further. If the crabs are really small, I'm going to put a little split shot above it, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing. So that is how to catch a permit on a spinning rod. I'm sure that people will have plenty of questions about it. One thing that is not often debated is the power of the blue crab. The blue crab is a bait that is it's very hardy bait all in all, but you do have to take care of it. Don't cast it a lot. Keep it wet all the time. And then when you have crabs left over, it's easy to keep them overnight. And we've done some How To Tuesdays about how to keep your bait overnight. You can do the Jeff Maggio, freeze some seawater in water bottles, open it up, put about 1.5 inches of water, 2 inches of water in the bottom of a cooler, set it up on a brick or some sort of something so that the cooler's at an incline. That way the crabs can be completely submerged on one end of the cooler, and they can walk up to where they can walk out of the water and breathe air. And if you can keep that water cool, those crabs will easily make it overnight. Easily. They'll also make it overnight in a big live well in your boat. The one thing that is really bad and the big place you can make a mistake with a lot of crabs is, say that you bought 50 crabs and you are trying to keep them overnight, and you also have a dozen shrimp left over. So you take those 50 crabs and your dozen shrimp and you put them in a bucket and you try to keep them. And those shrimp die, and for whatever reason, they put off a toxin which will kill every single one of your crabs. So the one rule that I have, I don't keep shrimp with crabs overnight, period, at all. Don't do it. I've lost way too many crabs like that. Keep thinking I'm going to figure it out how to do it, but it's just not even worth it. Have 2 coolers. Keep your shrimp in one, keep your crabs in the other. And also the crabs will reach up and they'll grab those shrimp and they'll nip at them, and they'll eventually kill them. So even if the shrimp don't die, the crabs are killing them. And before they can eat them, the toxin that the dead shrimp put off kill the crabs. Or can kill the crabs. It doesn't happen every time, but it always happens on tournament day or when you really need it. So I just suggest not keeping shrimp and crabs together. All right. I hope that helps. How to catch a permit on a spinning rod. It's one of the greatest things in all of angling. If you haven't done it, you need to. I used to say I'd rather catch 1 on fly than 10 on bait. But that was before I ever caught 10 on bait. Then I caught 10 on bait. It's pretty fun. should catch 10 on bait. It's really good, really fun. You learn a lot about the permit. And if you're a fly fisherman and you've never caught a permit on fly and you keep trying, well, maybe you ought to catch a couple on a crab and a spinning rod, because you will see how the fish reacts. You'll see the reaction you're trying to get out of it, and you will very quickly learn a lot more, and you will be a better fly fisherman for permit because you've had the experience of catching a couple on crabs. That's my opinion. I don't know. Some people disagree. All right. How to Tuesday, a little longer one this time. How to catch a permit on a spinning rod. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, send me an email at podcast@saltwaterexperience. If you've got further questions, send to that same address, podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. If you have just a minute, if you wouldn't mind going and rating and reviewing this podcast on iTunes, give it a 5-star rating and some kind of nice review. That would be awesome. I'd really appreciate that. All right, until next week. See ya.